Nintendo has become one of the most arrogant and anti-consumer companies in the gaming industry, and it's completely apparent when we're actually talking about the whole Switch 2 debacle with the pricing issues, with the inflationary and tariff problems that are also being bundled into Nintendo's pricing of the Nintendo Switch 2, and just the whole economy in general and how people are not going to be accepting $80 and $90 video games. And it's truly apparent when even the Nintendo president Doug Bowser has told people that if they cannot afford the Switch 2, to just play the original Switch. Now, if you don't know or just haven't heard the story, there was a little old Xbox CEO, his name was Don Matrick, and he actually said about the same thing about the Xbox 360 to Xbox One, kind of in a different statement, talking about how if you don't like the internet connectivity mandate on the Xbox One console, you can stick with the Xbox 360. That is the same exact energy and arrogance that Nintendo is showing here. They are showing that, you know what, we know you're going to be playing our games anyway. And you know what, I'll give it to them, of course. They are probably one of the last bastions of AAA creativity in the industry, but that does not allow them and should not allow them for them to be some of the most arrogant companies and one of the most arrogant developers in the entire gaming industry, to the point where they can increase the price of games far exceeding other AAA publishers, and they can also heavily sell and overmarket, at least in my opinion, because I don't believe the Switch is worth $450, that price for the console. And what really blows my mind is that we have people in the current day industry, and these are people who actually have the ability to spend money freely, are actually defending these business practices that Nintendo is pulling. Someone stated, "I realized you are a headline chasing retard that rides hate momentum to compensate for your own lack of anything engaging on your own Steam, but the cost of the Switch 2 with the Mario Kart bundle plus premium NSO is cheaper than anything else on the market. It's not even close. It's $600 with tax, included for all the things that I've listed. However, a refurbished, not new PS5 is $449 on Amazon. If you wanted the PSN with games, it's an eye-watering 120 plus, then add a $70 game, that's around $700 with tax. Taking into account that only a few games will be $80, I just don't see how you people can keep up with this bullshit for so long." Now, he's actually factually wrong here. The Xbox Series S, which is to this day still the cheapest current gen console, you could probably pick up for about $249 or even $300. And then Xbox Game Pass, still to this day the best service in gaming, allowing for you to play so many new titles. Like one right now, you're watching gameplay of South of Midnight, and a bunch of other first-party exclusives, plus third-party games that Xbox is paying for them, for developers to actually put into the service, plus weekly and monthly games as well. It is the best deal in gaming, and it is the cheapest deal in gaming. You compensating by saying the PS5 is more expensive, so that means the Switch 2 is okay at the price it's at. That doesn't make any sense. Just because Sony sells the PS5 for more because it's an inherently more powerful console doesn't mean that the Switch is just allowed to be $450 and have each game at $80 to $90. And if you're in Canada or Australia, that shit's going for well over $100. These are the same shitty and poor business practices that gamers criticize Sony for with the PS3 generation, and that people, extremely rightfully so, criticized Xbox and Microsoft for the Xbox One generation. All three companies have now had royal fuck-ups due to pricing increases and due to all these other variables that have actually occurred within the gaming industry. Of course, the economy, you know what? Price increases are bound to happen at this point. Video games do not need to be $80 to $90. There's no way you could convince me that Mario Kart World needs to be an $80 digital game. I don't believe that the development costs of that game were so high, and that you believe that the sales of the game are going to be so low that you feel you need to charge another $10 on top of the increased price for the games you already had. Tears of the Kingdom was a $70 title on a hardware that ran the game at 30 frames per second and sub 1080p if you got lucky. There was no way that that game should have been $70 in the first place. And Nintendo finds it okay to actually sell their new next-gen games for $80 and then $90 physically. And then in some cases, the full physical game doesn't even actually have it on the little chip or on the little insert card. Sometimes you actually just have to download it online when you buy a physical copy. So it doesn't really matter. You don't even actually have a real physical copy. The anti-consumerism out of Nintendo is astounding. And you know what? People will defend it. And I don't think it's rightfully so that people should defend Nintendo. I feel like a lot of people should be shit-talking Nintendo for this. Because like I said earlier, yes, they have some of the most creative video games of all time. I will give that to them. They almost had me on the Nintendo 2 direct sale. I would have bought one if not for these prices, just because of the games alone. And I'm not really someone anymore who could be sold on a console just for games. But I looked at that, I said, you know what, they got some bangers coming up. People at Nintendo and the developers that are under Nintendo know what they're doing. They're extremely creative, extremely talented, and like I said earlier, the last bastion of AAA just games in the industry that haven't been watered down and muddled, maybe except for Pokemon, but the rest of the gaming industry has just done such a terrible job compared to the rest of Nintendo. But even if Nintendo is still one of the last bastions of AAA just awesomeness in the industry, we still have to take a look at their anti-consumerism. Of course, look, the Nintendo Switch 2, hey, you know what? Like, you can't afford it? Buy a Switch 1. Is the Switch 1 going to get a discount after the Switch 2 releases? Are the games going to get a discount after the Switch releases? Aren't they really just basically saying that all games with Switch 2 enhancements are Switch 2 games? So what is the absolute point of saying these comments? Like, honestly, it was probably one of the worst things you could do to actually hype up your console. At this point right now, Nintendo does have a successful console on the way. They literally just need to shut up. They need to stop talking. The console is going to do well. You just need to quite literally stop talking. Those $80 games will probably still sell because no matter what, you have a bastion. You have an army of people that no matter what, you could literally have the worst and most overpriced console of all time and it will still sell well. It'll still sell a shit ton of games. It'll still sell a shit ton of units. And you know what? You'll have a successful console because of it. The only thing holding you guys back currently is your dumbass comments that you keep making on a consistent basis. The Xbox One was a shit show from the start, but was definitely gonna have some sort of user base. The problem is that they kept talking and they kept saying the wrong things. Right now, Nintendo is saying the wrong things and they need to have a complete 180 on their entire business plan. I don't think that they're gonna say, hey, never mind, we heard you guys, we're gonna sell games at $70 instead of $80 and $90. I don't think they're gonna lower the price of the Switch 2, and in the end, honestly, the Switch 2 price isn't even really a problem, it's mainly just the games. But saying that people should stick to the Switch 1 if they can't afford it is extremely arrogant, and especially since you're probably not even gonna be lowering the price of the first Nintendo Switch. So what is the point of even saying that? It just, again, it oozes arrogance, and it oozes the old Don Matrick quote from when he again said, hey, you don't like the Xbox One's connectivity? Just get a 360. We have another product for you. Not even knowing that you also have two other competitors in the industry that are willing and so wanting to take your customer base away from you. And unfortunately enough, we will always have people who feel like they need to defend billion-dollar corporations, who feel like they need to defend Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, Steam, Epic Games, every single company that decides to make games, every single company that decides to sell games for their anti-consumer practices, just because they like that brand, just because they've had memories with that brand, just because they have just an enjoyment of what that company has given them. And of course, you can defend, and I'm fine with, and I'm sure some other people are, you can defend business decisions based on economics and based on other things that are going on in the world. But when we have companies that literally not even half a decade ago increase the prices of games for little to no reason other than little bullshit reasons like, oh, gaming costs are too high and next generation will be more expensive, even though that is quite literally their own fault. And now we have Nintendo again now increasing the price of their games for quite literally no reason. Their games probably don't cost that much to develop, and I highly doubt the Switch 2 hardware is magically increasing the development costs of these games. And now, this also just gives Rockstar Games and Take-Two Interactive the biggest pass to charge possibly up to $100 for GTA 6. I'd have no doubt now that they could see, hey look, GTA 6 can be $80 digitally, $90 physically. We can do whatever we want because we're Rockstar Games and people will buy it. And I guarantee people will defend it. They'll be saying things like, hey, this game's been in development for near a decade. This is Grand Theft Auto 6. It's the biggest entertainment product of all time. It's gonna be easily. Yeah, that is true, but that does not excuse poor business practices coming from these companies. Just because Nintendo does make some bangers does not mean that they should be allowed to overcharge you for these games, and people really need to learn that. But I want to thank you all for watching this video. If you did enjoy, consider leaving a like, sharing, commenting, and subscribing if you so choose to. Thank you all for watching again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.